Complete nonsense, my boss declared, deleting my project in front of everyone. Redo it. Just then, my phone rang. Yes, I accept the $300,000 in director position, I answered. She froze when she realized who was calling. I never thought my life would change forever on a Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago. The smell of burnt coffee from our office machine mixed with the sterile scent of disinfectant that the cleaning crew had used the night before. I sat at my desk, staring at the computer screen that displayed 3 months of my work. A complete marketing strategy for our biggest client, Harrison Industries. My fingers trembled slightly as I scrolled through the presentation one final time. The fluorescent lights above hummed their usual annoying tune, casting that harsh white glow that made everyone look slightly sick. My cubicle felt smaller than usual that morning, surrounded by towers of paper and empty energy drink cans. I had been working 60-hour weeks for the past month, staying late every night while my wife Sarah complained about never seeing me anymore. "You care more about that stupid job than your own family," she had said just the night before, standing in our kitchen doorway, wearing her pink bathrobe, arms crossed. Her voice carried that edge it always had when she was building up to one of her lectures about my priorities. But today was different. Today was the presentation that would change everything. Mr. Peterson, our department head, had promised that whoever landed the Harrison account would be first in line for the promotion to senior marketing director. The position came with a $40,000 raise and a corner office with actual windows that looked out onto the lake instead of the parking garage. I adjusted my tie for the 10th time, running my hands through my hair. The navy blue suit was my best one, the one Sarah had picked out for me 2 Christmases ago when we still went shopping together. Now she barely looked up from her phone when I left for work in the morning. The conference room smelled like vanilla air freshener and anxiety. Peterson sat at the head of the long mahogany table, his gray beard perfectly trimmed, his expensive watch catching the light every time he moved his wrist. To his right sat Jennifer Martinez, my biggest competition for the promotion. She wore a sharp black blazer and had that confident smile that made my stomach twist into knots. "All right, team," Peterson began, his voice carrying that authoritative tone that made everyone straighten up in their chairs. "We have 2 excellent presentations today for the Harrison Industries account. This is our biggest potential client this year, worth approximately $2.5 million in annual revenue. The other employees around the table, Mike from accounting, Susan from HR, and 3 junior associates whose names I could never remember, all turned their attention to the front of the room. The projector hummed to life, casting a bright white rectangle on the wall behind Peterson. Jennifer went first. Her presentation was polished, professional, filled with fancy graphics and buzzwords that sounded impressive but said very little. She talked about synergistic approaches and optimized engagement matrices, while clicking through slides that probably cost more to design than I made in a month. The whole thing felt cold, calculated, like something a computer might have generated. When she finished, there was polite applause. Peterson nodded approvingly and made some notes on his yellow legal pad. Then it was my turn. I stood up, my legs feeling slightly unsteady beneath me. My presentation was different, more personal, more human. I had spent weeks researching Harrison Industries, not just their business model, but their company culture, their employees, their community involvement. I had discovered that their founder, Robert Harrison, had started the company in his garage 30 years ago with nothing but a dream and a $1,000 loan from his sister. My slides told a story, not just about marketing strategies and target demographics, but about connecting with real people who had real problems that Harrison Industries could solve. I talked about the single mother in Detroit, who needed their affordable home security system to protect her children. I mentioned the elderly couple in Phoenix who relied on their medical alert devices to maintain their independence. As I spoke, I noticed Peterson leaning forward in his chair. His pen had stopped moving across the notepad. Even Jennifer seemed to be paying attention, though she tried to hide it behind a mask of professional indifference. This approach, I continued, clicking to my final slide, isn't just about selling products. It's about building relationships. It's about understanding that behind every purchase is a person with hopes, fears, and dreams just like ours. The room was quiet when I finished. Not the polite, expected quiet after Jennifer's presentation, but something deeper. I could hear the air conditioning unit cycling on, the distant sound of traffic from the street below, someone's stomach gurgling softly. Peterson set down his pen and looked directly at me. Interesting approach, Johnson. Very unconventional. I couldn't tell if that was good or bad. His tone was neutral, giving nothing away. Jennifer shifted in her seat, her confident smile flickering just slightly. We'll need some time to review both presentations, Peterson continued. I'll have a decision by the end of the week. As everyone filed out of the conference room, I felt that familiar mixture of hope and dread that comes after putting everything on the line. I had given my best effort, poured my heart into that presentation, but there were no guarantees in this business. Sometimes the best ideas didn't win. Sometimes politics and office relationships mattered more than creativity and hard work. Back at my desk, I tried to focus on other projects, but my mind kept wandering. I found myself staring out the small window near the copy machine, watching people walk by on the sidewalk below. They all seemed to know where they were going, moving with purpose and confidence. I envied them. The rest of the day crawled by like molasses. Every time Peterson walked past my cubicle, I held my breath, wondering if he was about to deliver news about the Harrison account. But he just nodded politely and kept walking, his leather shoes clicking against the tile floor. Around 4 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Don't forget, I need you to pick me up from Jessica's party tonight. Don't be late like last time. I had completely forgotten about the party. Sarah's friend Jessica was celebrating her promotion at the law firm where she worked. It was one of those networking events disguised as a social gathering, full of lawyers and business people talking about their latest successes while sipping wine and eating tiny sandwiches. I texted back, "What time?" 10:30. And wear something nice. These are important people. Important people. Sarah was always concerned about important people these days. Ever since she'd started working part-time at that boutique downtown, she had become obsessed with climbing social ladders and making connections. She would come home from work with stories about customers who drove expensive cars or lived in mansions on the north side of town. "We need to think about our image," she would say, flipping through magazines filled with pictures of perfect houses and perfect families. "We need to position ourselves better in the community." I never quite understood what she meant by that, but I nodded along anyway. Marriage, I had learned, involved a lot of nodding along. The clock on my computer screen seemed to be moving backward. 5 o'clock couldn't come fast enough. I needed to get out of that office, away from the fluorescent lights and the constant hum of printers and copiers. I needed fresh air and space to think. When 5:30 finally arrived, I gathered my things and headed for the elevator. The parking garage smelled like exhaust fumes and stale air. My car, a 7-year-old Honda Civic with a small dent in the rear bumper, sat in its usual spot near the back corner. Not exactly the vehicle of someone climbing social ladders, but it was reliable and paid for. The drive home took me through the heart of downtown Chicago, past the lake where sailboats dotted the horizon like white triangles against the blue water. I rolled down the windows, despite the October chill, letting the wind blow through my hair and carry away some of the tension from the day. Our house sat on a quiet street lined with oak trees that were just beginning to show their fall colors. It was a modest, two-story colonial with blue shutters and a small front porch where Sarah liked to sit with her morning coffee and judge the neighbors' landscaping choices. I pulled into our driveway just as the sun was setting behind the houses across the street, painting everything in shades of orange and pink. The porch light was already on, casting a warm yellow glow across the front steps where Sarah had placed 2 pumpkins and a wreath made of autumn leaves. She had always been good at making our house look welcoming from the outside. Inside, the smell of her vanilla candles mixed with whatever she had been cooking for dinner. I could hear the television in the living room playing one of those reality shows she loved. The ones where people screamed at each other about things that seemed completely ridiculous to me, but somehow kept millions of viewers glued to their screens every week. "Tom? Is that you?" Sarah's voice came from upstairs. "Yeah, I'm home," I called back, hanging my jacket on the hook by the front door. The same hook where I had hung my jacket every day for the past 8 years of our marriage. Some routines never changed, even when everything else seemed to be shifting beneath your feet. I found her in our bedroom, standing in front of the full-length mirror that leaned against the wall beside her dresser. She was holding up 2 different dresses, one black and one deep red, studying her reflection with the intense concentration of someone preparing for battle. "Which one do you think?" she asked without turning around. "I want to make a good impression tonight. Jessica said there's going to be a partner from Morrison and Associates there, and you know how much I've been wanting to get my foot in the door at a firm like that." Sarah had been talking about going back to law school for as long as I could remember. She had a bachelor's degree in political science from Northwestern, but had never quite figured out what to do with it. The boutique job was supposed to be temporary, just until she decided on her next move, but temporary had stretched into 2 years. "The red one," I said, loosening my tie. "It brings out your eyes." She smiled at me in the mirror, and for a moment she looked like the woman I had married, before the constant worry about money and status and what other people thought of us. Before we started sleeping on opposite sides of the bed with an invisible wall built from unspoken resentments and disappointed dreams. "I need you to be charming tonight," she said, finally turning to face me. "These people could be important for our future, for both of us. Our future." I wondered if we were even planning the same future anymore, or if we had somehow started walking on parallel paths that would never intersect again. I showered and changed into my second-best suit, the charcoal gray one with a tiny stain on the left sleeve that I always hoped nobody would notice. Sarah was already downstairs when I came out of the bathroom, checking her makeup one final time in the hallway mirror. "You look beautiful," I told her, and I meant it. Despite everything that had been building between us, she was still the most attractive woman I had ever known. Her dark hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and the red dress fit her perfectly. "Thank you," she said. But she was already reaching for her purse, her mind clearly focused on the evening ahead, rather than on us. The party was at Jessica's condo in Lincoln Park, one of those converted warehouse buildings with exposed brick walls and industrial-looking fixtures that cost more per month than most people made in a year. We found parking 3 blocks away and walked through the chilly October air, Sarah's heels clicking against the sidewalk like a metronome, counting down to something I couldn't quite identify. Jessica met us at the door wearing a flowing black dress and the kind of smile that suggested she had already been celebrating for a while. Her condo was filled with the sound of conversation and soft jazz music, the warm glow of expensive lamps casting everything in golden light. "Tom, Sarah, I'm so glad you could make it," Jessica said, giving us both air kisses that smelled like expensive perfume and wine. "There are some fascinating people here tonight. You absolutely must meet Richard Morrison. He's the senior partner I was telling you about, Sarah." I accepted a glass of wine from a server who looked like he was probably an aspiring actor paying his bills between auditions. The wine tasted expensive, with that complex flavor that people always described using words like earthy and full-bodied that never meant anything to me. The crowd was exactly what I had expected. Lawyers, financial consultants, a few people from the advertising world who spoke in that rapid-fire way that made everything sound urgent and important. I found myself nodding and smiling, making small talk about the weather and the upcoming election, while Sarah networked her way across the room like a professional diplomat. "So, what do you do, Tom?" asked a woman named Brenda, who worked for some kind of investment firm downtown. She had perfectly straight blonde hair and the kind of teeth that only came from expensive orthodontics. "Marketing," I said. "I work for Patterson and Associates." "Oh, interesting. What kind of accounts do you handle?" I started to tell her about the Harrison Industries presentation, but before I could finish my first sentence, her attention had already drifted to someone else who had just joined our conversation. A man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as a hedge fund manager. This was how these parties always went. People asked questions but didn't really want answers unless those answers involved impressive job titles or connections they could use. I excused myself and wandered toward the windows that looked out over the city, nursing my wine and watching the traffic move along Lakeshore Drive. "Not your scene either, huh?" I turned to find a man about my age standing beside me. He had graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and he was wearing a suit that looked like it came from the same department store where I shopped. "Not particularly," I admitted. "You?" "My wife dragged me here. She works with Jessica at the firm. I'm Dave, by the way. Dave Chen. Tom Johnson. Nice to meet someone else who feels like a fish out of water." Dave laughed. These people make everything sound so life or death important. Listen to them. They're talking about quarterly projections like they're planning D-Day. We stood there for a while, watching the party swirl around us. Sarah was deep in conversation with Richard Morrison and two other lawyers, her face animated in a way I hadn't seen in months. She was in her element, discussing legal precedents and career strategies with people who understood the language she had been trying to speak for years. "Your wife seems to be enjoying herself," Dave observed. "Yeah, she's good at this stuff. Better than I am, anyway." "What do you do?" "Marketing. Though some days I'm not entirely sure what that means anymore." Dave nodded knowingly. "I'm in IT. Spend my days fixing computers and pretending that the latest software update is going to revolutionize everything. Most of the time, I feel like I'm just moving digital deck chairs around on the Titanic." It was refreshing to meet someone who didn't speak in corporate buzzwords and networking platitudes. We talked about normal things, our jobs, our families, the Cubs' disappointing season, the road work that had been tying up traffic on the expressway for 6 months. Around 9 o'clock, the party started to thin out. People had early meetings and important calls to make in the morning. Sarah appeared at my elbow, her cheeks flushed with excitement and wine. "Tom, you should have come over and met Richard. He was telling me about some openings they might have for someone with my background. This could be exactly the opportunity I've been waiting for." "That's great, honey. I'm really happy for you." And I was happy for her, even though her success somehow made me feel smaller. She had spent the evening talking to people who might actually be able to help her achieve her dreams. while I had made small talk about baseball with a guy who fixed computers for a living. I told Jessica we'd stay until the end to help clean up. Sarah continued. She's been such a good friend, and I want to make sure she knows how much I appreciate her introducing me to the right people. So we stayed, collecting empty glasses and wiping down surfaces, while Jessica told us about her promotion and her new corner office with a view of the park. Sarah hung on every word, asking questions about law school prerequisites and LSAT preparation courses. I found myself in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher with expensive stemware and thinking about my presentation earlier that day. Had Peterson made his decision yet? Was Jennifer already celebrating her victory while I was scraping cheese and crackers off someone else's good plates? It was nearly 10:30 by the time we finished cleaning up and said our goodbyes. Sarah was quiet during the walk back to our car, but I could tell she was processing the evening, filing away business cards and planning follow-up emails. "Thank you for coming tonight," she said, as we drove through the empty streets toward home. "I know these things aren't really your favorite, but it means a lot to me that you're supportive. Of course, I want you to be happy, Sarah. I want you to get everything you're looking for." She reached over and squeezed my hand, and for a moment, it felt like we were on the same team again. Like we were partners working toward common goals instead of two people who happened to share a mortgage and a last name. But as we pulled into our driveway and the automatic garage door rumbled closed behind us, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting between us. Sarah had found her tribe tonight, her people who spoke her language and understood her ambitions. And I was still trying to figure out where I fit in a world that seemed to value connections over competence, networking over genuine human interaction. Wednesday morning arrived with that particular kind of gray October sky that made everything look washed out and tired. I sat in my car outside the office building for a few extra minutes, watching people hurry past on the sidewalk with their coffee cups and briefcases. Everyone moving with that purposeful stride that suggested they knew exactly where they belonged in the world. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt longer than usual. The same instrumental music played softly through the speakers. The same mirror reflected my face back at me, looking slightly more worn than I remembered from just a few days ago. Maybe it was the fluorescent lighting, or maybe it was the weight of waiting for news about the Harrison account that was starting to show around my eyes. My cubicle looked exactly the same as I had left it yesterday. The same stack of papers, the same empty coffee mug with the logo from last year's company picnic, the same small cactus that Sarah had given me for my birthday 3 years ago. It was supposed to be impossible to kill, she had said with a laugh, perfect for someone like me who forgot to water plants. I powered up my computer and checked my emails, hoping to find something from Peterson about the presentation. Instead, I found the usual collection of company newsletters, meeting reminders, and promotional offers from office supply companies. Nothing about Harrison Industries. Nothing about the promotion. Jennifer walked past my cubicle around 9:15, carrying a fresh cup of coffee from the expensive place down the street instead of the burnt sludge from our office machine. She was wearing another one of those sharp business suits that probably cost more than my car payment, and she had that confident walk that suggested good news was coming her way soon. "Morning, Tom," she said with a smile that felt just a little too bright. "Ready for another exciting day in the world of marketing?" "Always," I replied, trying to match her enthusiasm, but probably falling short. The morning dragged by with spreadsheets and strategy meetings and conference calls, where everyone talked in circles for an hour without actually deciding anything. I kept glancing toward Peterson's office, watching for any sign that he was ready to announce his decision about the Harrison account. Around 11:30, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Lunch today. I have news." We met at a small cafe near her boutique. One of those places that serves salads with names like The Executive and Power Bowl to people who wanted to feel important while eating lunch. Sarah was already seated at a corner table when I arrived, practically bouncing in her chair with excitement. "Richard Morrison called this morning," she said before I had even fully sat down. "He wants to meet with me next week about a paralegal position with potential for growth. Tom, this could be it. This could be my way into the legal field." Her eyes were bright with possibility, and I felt that familiar mixture of happiness for her success and worry about what it might mean for us. Sarah had always been ambitious, but lately her ambitions seemed to be pulling her further away from the life we had built together. "That's wonderful, honey. I'm really proud of you. The pay would be better than what I'm making at the boutique, and the experience would be invaluable if I decide to go to law school. Richard said they're always looking for bright people who are willing to work hard and learn." She talked through most of lunch about the opportunity, about Richard's impressive career, about the firm's prestigious client list. I nodded and asked appropriate questions while picking at my sandwich, trying to be supportive while dealing with my own uncertainty about the future. "What about you?" she asked finally. "Any word on that big presentation?" "Not yet. Peterson said he'd have an answer by the end of the week." "I'm sure you'll get it. You always worry too much about these things." But even as she said it, I could see that her attention was already drifting back to her own exciting news. She was checking her phone, probably reading the email from Richard Morrison for the 10th time, probably already planning what she would wear to their meeting. I walked her back to the boutique and returned to the office, feeling somehow more alone than I had when the day started. Sarah's success highlighted my own stagnation in ways that made my chest feel tight and my head start to pound. The afternoon brought more meetings, more emails, more of the endless busy work that filled corporate days without actually accomplishing anything meaningful. I found myself staring at the Harrison Industries presentation on my computer screen, second-guessing every slide, every word choice, every design decision. Around 4 o'clock, Peterson's assistant, Margaret, appeared at my cubicle. She was a woman in her 50s who had been with the company longer than anyone could remember, and she had the kind of stern expression that made grown men straighten their ties and check their posture. "Mr. Peterson would like to see you in his office," she said in her crisp, no-nonsense voice. My heart started beating faster as I walked down the hallway toward the corner office. This was it. This was the moment when I would learn whether 3 months of work and countless late nights had been worth anything. Peterson's office smelled like leather and expensive cologne. His desk was perfectly organized, with neat stacks of papers and a computer monitor that looked like it cost more than most people's entire home office setup. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city that made everything else seem small and insignificant. "Tom, please, have a seat," he said, gesturing to one of the chairs across from his desk. His voice was neutral, giving nothing away. I sat down and tried to appear calm while my pulse hammered in my ears. Peterson picked up a folder from his desk, my presentation materials, I realized, and opened it slowly. "I've been reviewing both presentations for the Harrison account," he began. "Both you and Jennifer put together solid proposals." Solid. That was the kind of word that usually preceded disappointment. Solid was what you called something that wasn't quite good enough, but that you didn't want to criticize too harshly. "However," Peterson continued, "after careful consideration, I've decided to go with Jennifer's approach. It aligns more closely with our established client relationships and proven methodologies." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt my face get hot and my stomach drop toward my shoes. 3 months of work, 3 months of hope, 3 months of imagining a better future. All gone in one short sentence. "I know this is disappointing," Peterson said. though his tone suggested he had already moved on to thinking about other things. But I want you to know that your presentation showed creativity and passion. Those are valuable qualities, and I'm sure the right opportunity will come along. The right opportunity. Another meaningless phrase that people used when they were trying to make you feel better about failure. I understand, I managed to say, though I wasn't sure I understood anything anymore. Good. Well, I need to get ready for the client call with Harrison Industries. Jennifer will be leading that, of course. Of course. I stood up on unsteady legs and made my way to the door, feeling like everyone in the office was watching me, even though most people probably hadn't even noticed I had been in Peterson's office at all. Back at my cubicle, I stared at my computer screen without seeing anything. The presentation that had consumed my life for 3 months was still open. All those hours of research and writing and design work now completely meaningless. I felt hollow, scraped out, like someone had reached inside my chest and removed something essential. Jennifer walked past around 5 o'clock, probably heading home to celebrate her victory. She didn't look in my direction, but I caught a glimpse of that satisfied smile that told me she already knew about Peterson's decision. I stayed at my desk until almost everyone else had gone home. Not because I had work to do, but because I didn't know how to face Sarah and tell her that while her career was taking off like a rocket, mine had just crashed and burned. How could I explain that all my confidence about getting the promotion had been completely misplaced? Finally, around 6:30, I gathered my things and made the long walk to the parking garage. The drive home was a blur of traffic lights and stop signs, my mind replaying the conversation with Peterson over and over, looking for some sign I had missed, some indication that the decision hadn't been final. Sarah was in the kitchen when I got home, standing at the stove stirring something that smelled like garlic and herbs. She was humming softly to herself, still riding the high from her conversation with Richard Morrison. "You're late," she said without turning around. I was starting to worry. "Sorry, got caught up in something at work." "Well, you're just in time for dinner. I made that pasta dish you like, the one with the mushrooms and white sauce." She was being unusually domestic, unusually attentive. Maybe her good news had put her in a generous mood. Or maybe she was feeling guilty about how excited she had been about her own opportunities while I struggled with mine. We ate dinner while she talked about her meeting with Richard Morrison next week, about what questions she should ask, about what this opportunity might mean for our future. I nodded and made appropriate sounds while pushing pasta around my plate. The words about my own failure sitting in my throat like stones I couldn't swallow. "You're quiet tonight," Sarah observed. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just tired. Long day." It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. I wasn't ready to admit defeat. Wasn't ready to see the disappointment in her eyes when she realized that her husband was just another middle-aged man who had peaked in middle management while she was ascending to bigger and better things. After dinner, we settled into our usual evening routine. Sarah curled up on the couch with her laptop, researching the law firm and probably practicing answers to interview questions. I sat in my recliner with the remote, flipping through channels without really watching anything. Thursday morning brought rain and the kind of bitter wind that cut right through your jacket and reminded you that winter was coming, whether you were ready or not. I sat in my car in the office parking lot, watching droplets race down the windshield and wondering how I was supposed to walk into that building and pretend everything was normal. The elevator was crowded with the usual morning crowd, accountants clutching their coffee like lifelines, administrative assistants checking their phones one last time before the workday officially began, junior executives practicing their presentations under their breath. I pressed myself into the back corner and tried to become invisible. My cubicle felt smaller than ever, like the walls were slowly closing in. The Harrison Industries presentation was still open on my computer screen. A digital monument to failure that I couldn't bring myself to close. I minimized it and tried to focus on other projects. But concentration was impossible when Jennifer's laughter kept drifting over from her desk. She was on the phone with someone. Probably a contact at Harrison Industries. Probably discussing timeline and deliverables and all the things that should have been my responsibility. Her voice carried that tone of professional confidence that came from knowing you were exactly where you were supposed to be. Around 10:30, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Probably another telemarketer trying to sell me extended warranties or credit card services. "Tom Johnson?" I answered, not bothering to hide the irritation in my voice. "Mr. Johnson? This is David Harrison from Harrison Industries." My heart stopped. David Harrison, as in the son of the company founder, as in the heir apparent to the $2.5 million account that Jennifer had just won. Why was he calling me directly instead of going through Peterson? "Mr. Harrison, hello. What can I do for you?" "I wanted to talk to you about your presentation yesterday. Do you have a few minutes?" I glanced around the office, making sure no one was paying attention to my conversation. Peterson was in his office with the door closed, probably on a call with someone much more important than me. Jennifer was still talking animatedly into her headset. "Of course. I have all the time you need." "Good. I have to tell you, your approach really resonated with me. The way you talked about connecting with real people, about understanding that behind every purchase is a person with hopes and fears. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need." I felt a flutter of confusion mixed with hope. "I'm glad it connected with you, Mr. Harrison. But I should mention that my company has decided to go with a different approach for your account." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I see. Well, that's interesting, because I was calling to tell you that we've decided we want to work with you specifically. Your presentation is the kind of authentic, human-centered marketing that fits with our company values." The words didn't seem real. I wondered if I was having some kind of stress-induced hallucination brought on by too much disappointment and too little sleep. "I'm not sure I understand, Mr. Harrison. The account has already been assigned to another team member." "Mr. Johnson, let me be clear about something. Harrison Industries is prepared to offer a significant contract, but only if we can work directly with you. If your current company isn't able to accommodate that request, then we'll be happy to work with you wherever you land next." The implications of what he was saying started to sink in. Harrison Industries wanted to work with me specifically, not with Patterson and Associates. They were essentially offering me a choice: convince my current company to let me handle the account, or take the client with me somewhere else. That's a very generous offer, Mr. Harrison, but I'd need to discuss this with my supervisor. Of course, take your time. But I should mention that we're also looking for someone to head up our new marketing division. It would be a director-level position, fully remote with occasional travel to our headquarters in Milwaukee. The compensation package starts at $300,000 per year. $300,000. More than double what I was making at Patterson and Associates. More than enough to pay off our mortgage, to stop worrying about every grocery bill and credit card statement, to actually have a future that didn't involve living paycheck to paycheck while Sarah climbed social ladders I couldn't afford to reach. That's a very attractive offer, Mr. Harrison. I hope so. We believe in taking care of the people who understand our vision. Your presentation showed that you get what we're trying to accomplish. You understand that business is ultimately about human connections, not just quarterly reports and profit margins. We talked for another 10 minutes about the position, about Harrison Industries' expansion plans, about the kind of marketing campaigns they wanted to develop. By the time I hung up, my head was spinning with possibilities I had never dared to imagine. But first, I had to deal with Peterson. I walked down the hallway to his office, my legs feeling unsteady beneath me. Margaret looked up from her desk, with the same stern expression she always wore, as if my very presence was an inconvenience she had to endure. "Is Mr. Peterson available? I need to speak with him about the Harrison Industries account." She glanced at her appointment book with the thoroughness of someone who took scheduling very seriously. "He has 5 minutes before his next meeting." Peterson was reading something on his computer screen when I knocked on his door frame. He looked up with the mildly annoyed expression of someone who had already moved on from yesterday's decisions and didn't appreciate being forced to revisit them. "Tom, what can I do for you?" I took a deep breath and tried to organize my thoughts. This was the moment that would determine the direction of my entire career, maybe my entire life. I just got off the phone with David Harrison from Harrison Industries. He called to tell me that they want to work with me specifically on their account. Peterson's eyebrows rose slightly. "I'm sorry, what?" "They were impressed with my presentation and want me to handle their marketing campaign. Mr. Harrison was very specific about that." "That's unusual. Typically, clients work with whatever team we assign to their account." "I understand that. But Mr. Harrison was clear that they want to work with me personally, or they'll take their business elsewhere." Peterson leaned back in his chair, studying me with the careful attention of someone trying to solve an unexpected puzzle. The Harrison account was worth too much money to lose over personnel preferences, and we both knew it. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly. Harrison Industries is saying they'll only work with you, despite the fact that I've already assigned Jennifer to lead their account?" "That's correct." "And what exactly did you tell Mr. Harrison?" "I told him I would need to discuss it with my supervisor." Peterson was quiet for a long moment, probably calculating the financial implications of losing a $2.5 million client versus the political implications of reversing his decision about Jennifer's promotion. "This puts us in a difficult position, Tom. I've already informed Jennifer that she would be handling the Harrison account." "I understand that. But I thought you should know that the client has expressed a strong preference." What I didn't tell him was that David Harrison had also offered me a job that would pay more than Peterson probably made, or that I was seriously considering taking Harrison Industries' business to a company that would appreciate what I brought to the table. "Let me think about this," Peterson said finally. "I'll need to discuss it with the senior partners and figure out how to handle the situation with Jennifer." I nodded and turned to leave, but Peterson's voice stopped me at the door. "Tom, how did Harrison Industries get your direct number?" It was a good question, and I realized I didn't have a good answer. Business cards were usually collected and distributed through official channels, not handed directly to potential clients during presentations. "I'm not sure, sir. He didn't mention how he got my contact information." Peterson nodded slowly, and I could see him filing that detail away for future consideration. In the corporate world, unauthorized client contact was a serious breach of protocol, the kind of thing that could get you fired if someone wanted to make an issue of it. I spent the rest of the morning trying to look busy while my mind raced through possibilities. If Peterson decided to reverse his decision about the Harrison account, Jennifer would be furious. She had already started planning her approach to the campaign, probably already ordered new business cards with her elevated title. Being bumped from a major account would be a professional humiliation that she wouldn't forget or forgive easily. On the other hand, if Peterson decided to stick with his original decision and Harrison Industries followed through on their threat to take their business elsewhere, I would be blamed for losing the client through unauthorized communication. Either way, my future at Patterson and Associates was looking increasingly uncertain. Around noon, Margaret appeared at my cubicle again with that same stern expression that suggested bad news was coming. "Mr. Peterson would like to see you in the conference room, immediately." The conference room was the same one where I had given my presentation just 2 days earlier. But the atmosphere was completely different now. Peterson sat at the head of the table with Jennifer to his right and 2 senior partners I recognized but had never actually spoken to. The whole setup felt like a tribunal. "Tom, please have a seat," Peterson said, his voice carrying a formal tone that made my stomach clench with anxiety. I sat down across from Jennifer, who was staring at me with the kind of barely controlled anger that suggested she had already been informed about the morning's developments. Her perfectly styled hair and expensive suit looked like armor she had put on for battle. "We've been discussing the situation with Harrison Industries," Peterson continued. "As you know, this presents us with some unusual challenges." One of the senior partners, a man named Richards, who had the kind of silver hair and expensive watch that screamed success, leaned forward in his chair. "Tom, we need to understand exactly how Harrison Industries obtained your personal contact information and why they're insisting on working with you specifically." It was an accusation disguised as a question, and we all knew it. They were suggesting that I had somehow undermined the proper channels to communicate directly with the client, which would be a violation of company policy and grounds for immediate dismissal. "I have no idea how Mr. Harrison got my phone number," I said, which was the complete truth. "He called me out of the blue this morning." "And what exactly did he tell you?" Richards continued. "That Harrison Industries was impressed with my presentation and wanted to work with me personally on their marketing campaign." Jennifer finally spoke up, her voice tight with controlled fury. "This is completely inappropriate. I was assigned to the Harrison account yesterday. I've already started working on preliminary strategies and timeline development." "We understand your frustration, Jennifer," Peterson said diplomatically. "This is an unusual situation for all of us." "Unusual?" Jennifer's voice rose slightly. "This is sabotage. Tom obviously found a way to contact the client directly and undermine the decision that was made through proper channels." "I did no such thing," I replied, feeling my own anger starting to build. "David Harrison called me. I didn't initiate contact with him." The second senior partner, a woman named Foster who looked like she could eat lesser executives for breakfast, opened a folder in front of her. "The question is what we do now. Harrison Industries represents a significant revenue opportunity, and we can't afford to lose them over internal politics." "Internal politics?" Jennifer said incredulously. "This is about following proper procedures and maintaining professional standards. And those standards include doing what's best for our clients and our company," Richards replied smoothly. "If Harrison Industries has expressed a preference for working with Tom, then we need to consider accommodating that request." I could see Jennifer's face getting redder by the minute. She had probably been planning her victory celebration, probably already told her friends and family about her big promotion, probably already started planning how she would spend her increased salary. "This sets a terrible precedent," she said. "What happens the next time a junior employee decides to go around proper channels and poach a client from their assigned account manager?" "No one has poached anything," Peterson said firmly. "As far as we know, Tom followed proper procedures, and the client has simply expressed a preference based on his presentation." But even as he said it, I could see doubt in his eyes. The whole situation was messy and complicated. The kind of corporate drama that nobody wanted to deal with, but that couldn't be ignored when millions of dollars were on the line. Here's what we're going to do, Foster said with the tone of someone who was accustomed to making final decisions. Tom, you're going to call David Harrison back and arrange a meeting between him and our senior staff. We need to understand exactly what Harrison Industries is looking for and how we can best serve their needs. And if they insist on working with Tom specifically, Richards asked, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The meeting ended with everyone feeling unsatisfied. Jennifer stormed out without making eye contact with anyone, her heels clicking angrily against the tile floor. Peterson gathered his papers with the resigned expression of someone who knew his day was about to get much more complicated. I walked back to my cubicle feeling like I was trapped in a situation that was spiraling beyond my control. The phone call from David Harrison had seemed like a miracle that morning. But now it felt more like a curse that was about to destroy my career one way or another. My phone was ringing when I got back to my desk. The same unknown number from that morning. Tom Johnson. Mr. Johnson, this is David Harrison again. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. Not at all, Mr. Harrison. Actually, I was just about to call you back. Good. I wanted to follow up on our conversation this morning. Have you had a chance to discuss our offer with your supervisor? I glanced around the office, making sure no one was listening to my conversation. Peterson's office door was closed, probably trying to figure out how to manage the mess I had created. I have, and there seems to be some interest in accommodating your request to work with me directly on your account. Excellent. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear. However, my company would like to arrange a meeting with you to discuss the details and make sure we understand your expectations correctly. There was a pause on David Harrison's end of the line. Mr. Johnson, I appreciate your company's desire to be thorough, but I thought I was clear about our position. We want to work with you, not with a committee. I understand that, sir. But this is a significant account, and my supervisors want to make sure everything is handled properly. Another pause, longer this time. Mr. Johnson, let me ask you something directly. Are you happy with your current position at Patterson and Associates? The question caught me off guard. I'm sorry? Are you satisfied with your career prospects there? Do you feel like your talents are being properly recognized and compensated? I thought about Peterson's dismissive attitude yesterday, about Jennifer's smug smile when she walked past my cubicle, about the years of being overlooked for promotions while less qualified people advanced around me. I think every professional wants to feel valued and appreciated, I said carefully. That's a diplomatic answer. Let me be more direct. I told you this morning that Harrison Industries is looking for someone to head up our new marketing division. That offer is still on the table. $300,000 per year, full benefits, stock options, and the opportunity to build something from the ground up. $300,000. The number hit me like a physical force, making my head spin with possibilities. Sarah's law school tuition paid for without loans. A house with actual windows in my office. Vacation trips that didn't require months of careful budgeting. That's a very generous offer, Mr. Harrison. It is. And it comes with a Harrison Industries account, of course. We'd be your first major client, which would give you immediate credibility in the marketplace. I could hear the implication clearly. Take the job with Harrison Industries and bring their business with me. Leave Patterson and Associates with their biggest potential client in years, and leave Jennifer and Peterson scrambling to explain to their senior partners how they had managed to lose both a major account and the employee who had landed it. I would need some time to consider such a significant decision. Of course, but not too much time. We're hoping to have our new marketing director in place within the next 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Barely enough time to give notice at Patterson and Associates. Definitely not enough time to think through all the implications of such a dramatic career change. I understand? Excellent. I'll email you the formal job description and compensation package this afternoon. Take a look at it and let me know if you have any questions. After David Harrison hung up, I sat staring at my computer screen without seeing anything. The cubicle walls seemed to be closing in around me, the fluorescent lights buzzing with that annoying hum that had bothered me for years but that I had learned to ignore. $300,000 per year, director-level position, stock options, the chance to start over with a company that actually valued what I brought to the table. But it would also mean leaving the security of a steady job, taking a risk on a company and a boss I barely knew, burning bridges with Patterson and Associates that could never be rebuilt. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "How's your day going? Still thinking about your presentation?" If only she knew. If only I could tell her that in the space of one morning, my entire career had been turned upside down and inside out. That I was sitting here with an offer that could change our entire future if I was brave enough to take it. But I wasn't ready to have that conversation yet. Not until I understood exactly what I was being offered and what I would be giving up in return. I typed back, "Interesting day. Tell you more tonight." Around 3 o'clock, my email chimed with a message from David Harrison. The subject line read, "Marketing Director Position, Harrison Industries." I opened the attachment with trembling fingers, scanning through pages of job descriptions and benefit packages and compensation details that looked too good to be real. $300,000 base salary, plus performance bonuses that could add another $50,000 per year. Health insurance, dental, vision, 4 weeks of paid vacation, contribution matching for retirement accounts. At the bottom of the packet was a personal note from David Harrison. "Tom, I hope this gives you a clear picture of what we're offering. Harrison Industries is at an exciting point in our growth, and we need someone with your vision and creativity to help us reach the next level. I believe you're exactly the kind of leader we need, and I hope you'll give serious consideration to joining our team. The marketing landscape is changing rapidly, and companies that don't adapt get left behind. I think you understand that better than most people. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. David." I read through the packet 3 times, trying to find the catch, the fine print that would reveal why this offer was too good to be true. But everything looked legitimate, professional, exactly the kind of opportunity that people like me dreamed about but never actually expected to receive. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of routine tasks and distracted thoughts. Every few minutes, I would glance toward Peterson's office, wondering if he was working on a solution to the Harrison Industries situation, or if he was planning to throw me under the bus to protect his relationship with Jennifer. Jennifer herself had been conspicuously absent from her desk all afternoon, probably in meetings with senior staff discussing how to handle the client's unusual request. Or maybe she was updating her resume and reaching out to headhunters, preparing for the possibility that the Harrison account would be reassigned and her career prospects at Patterson and Associates would be permanently damaged. At 5:30, I packed up my things and headed for the parking garage, my mind churning with possibilities and doubts. The job offer from Harrison Industries represented everything I had been working toward for years: recognition, respect, financial security, the chance to build something meaningful instead of just managing other people's accounts. But it also meant taking a leap into the unknown, leaving behind the comfortable mediocrity of my current position for something that could either launch my career to new heights or crash and burn spectacularly. The drive home took me past the usual landmarks: the coffee shop where Sarah and I had our first date, The park where we used to walk on Sunday afternoons before we got too busy with careers and responsibilities. The grocery store where we argued about money and meal planning every weekend. Our house looked the same as always when I pulled into the driveway, the blue shutters and autumn decorations giving it that welcoming appearance that Sarah worked so hard to maintain. But I knew that by the time I walked through that front door, everything might be different. Because tonight, I was going to tell Sarah about the job offer. And her reaction would help me decide whether to take the biggest risk of my career or play it safe for another year, another decade, another lifetime of wondering what might have been. I sat in my car for a few extra minutes, watching the lights come on in our neighbors' houses, thinking about David Harrison's words about companies that don't adapt getting left behind. Maybe the same thing was true for people. Maybe playing it safe was actually the riskiest thing you could do in a world that was changing faster than anyone could keep up with. I took a deep breath, gathered my courage, and walked toward the front door of the house where my wife was waiting to hear about my day. The house where our future would be decided over dinner and conversation and the kind of life-changing decisions that most people only get to make once or twice in their entire lives. Tomorrow, I would have to give David Harrison an answer. Tonight, I had to figure out what that answer was going to be. The porch light was on, casting that familiar warm glow across the steps where Sarah had arranged her seasonal decorations. I could smell her vanilla candles through the windows, could hear the soft sound of music coming from the kitchen radio. I opened the front door and stepped into the life I had built over the past 8 years, knowing that by this time tomorrow, everything might be completely different. "Tom, is that you?" Sarah's voice called from the kitchen, the same greeting she gave me every evening when I came home from work. "Yeah, I'm home," I called back, hanging my jacket on the same hook I had used for years. But this time, as I walked toward the kitchen to tell my wife about the most important phone call of my career, I knew that nothing would ever be quite the same again.